You moved back to New Haven?
Moved back to New Haven and looked for what would be my grown-up life as a lawyer. One of the interviews that I had at the large law firm noted from either something I had said or my resume that I had a child. And he asked me, "Oh, what are your plans for daycare?" And I said, "That's such an interesting question. Do you ask that to the men you interview?" And he sat back and got stony-faced, and neither he nor I wanted me at that firm.
What firm did you go to, and tell us why you went there?
There was a small firm that was about 4 or 5 years old. It started out Garrison, Kahn, Weiss, Crane, and Silbert, and I would be their first associate and their first woman, and it was such a good choice and such a good fit. And we developed from a general practice a specialty within the firm of employment discrimination and civil rights law.
How many years were you there?
I was there 16 years. They were terrific years.
Janet, by this time you had your first child, Cameron, and you had a second child.
I was actually almost 6 months pregnant when I started practice. And that meant that all of a sudden the blur that was to be the next 20 years really began in earnest. Chris, with an academic schedule, made it possible to make this all happen and have the kids have at least one parent. Later on, after Cameron had gone off to school and Jamie and I were home, Chris became the founding dean of the Graduate School of Political Management at GW and was in Washington 4 days a week. And that's when I got new insight into what being a single parent was like and the impact on a child. On the issue of how to find balance, that is an ongoing challenge. But it shouldn't just be a challenge for the parents. I think it's really got to be a challenge for all of us.
And something caused you to want to be a judge.
It's so interesting because people ask me, had you always wanted to be a judge? And actually, it had never occurred to me. I was on sabbatical with the whole family in France for the summer. I was reading the French papers and reading about what was going on in Bosnia and Herzegovina. There were no functioning courts. There were no judges. It was a lawless place without a rule of law and a catastrophe of civilization. And it was a real eye-opening moment. And then as I thought about it more, I thought, actually, I would like to be a part of that judiciary so that I can play my role in ensuring that it not only stays strong but gets better and more broad-minded as to what impact it can have. And that was really when I got this idea that I would like to be a federal judge.
How does one become a federal judge?
I wrote letters to our 2 senators because they would be making the recommendation to the president. And then I went around and enlisted prominent, thoughtful people and asked them if they would write letters on my behalf. And in essence, I sort of organized my campaign. So this was going to be the recommendation of Joe Lieberman. And he tasked Clarine Nardi Riddle. And she interviewed, I understand, about 45 people. And then her purpose was to give Senator Lieberman 4 people to interview. And I was one of those 4. And that was staggeringly exciting.
How long after that interview did you find out that he was tapping you?
wasn't too much longer after that, maybe several weeks. He called the office and he says, "So I'm going to recommend you." And I remember saying, "Senator, I am so thrilled." And he said, "Well, I'm thrilled to thrill you."
But you had to go down for your Judiciary Committee hearing.
I did. The committee voted, and the Senate voted to advise and consent on the nomination of me on March 24th, and I was in Mexico on holiday because everyone had said, "Oh, they'll never get to it so fast." I had 2 or 3 trials to finish before I could accept the oath, and had the honor of being sworn in by none other than Jose A. Cabranes. And I remember that he said, "Becoming a federal judge is like Captain Marvel, Shazam. At that moment, when you're sworn in, you have powers that you never imagined." And he was right. And I remember that probably within 2 weeks after Jose's Shazam remarks, I enjoined the state of Connecticut Welfare Department from cutting back on welfare benefits because of deficiencies in the notice to the recipients, which had been flawed. That was Shazam.
Janet, I want to get to your great involvement internationally in law reform projects.
The thing that I am doing and have been for the last 6 years that's really important to me and takes a lot of time is my support court.
Support court?
And this is a program that we've developed. I started it in New Haven. Judge Underhill piloted it in Bridgeport. Judge Bryant does it in Hartford. And it's a program for re-entering citizens who are coming out of prison but who have had very serious drug or alcohol addictions.
Why is that the job of a federal judge?
If you know that you are going to have sky-high recidivism rates for people because they are addicted, here is something that you can do. And here is something that you do together with them, and understanding what is involved with actually getting control of an addiction and being able to, I think, makes me a better judge. I think it makes me capable of understanding what sentence is appropriate. It has been one of the most important things, new things that I have been doing as a federal judge, and the studies of these kinds of drug courts suggest that it is the presence of the judge in this support court setting that is making a difference.